You're welcome back to the conversation in News Central Television. In response to the recent wave of military coups in Africa, Rwanda and Cameroon have taken proactive steps following a coup in Gabon that removed President Ali Bongo from power. Cameroon's President Paul Biya initiated a significant restructuring of the Ministry of Defense, reshuffling key positions within the military. In parallel, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda authorized the retirement of 83 high-ranking officers, including senior presidential advisor James Kabarebe, in an apparent effort to address the growing instability caused by military coups across the continent. Additionally, meetings were conducted to explore ways to enhance the first cooperation between these nations. Notably, both Kagame and Biya have held lengthy presidencies, with Kagame in office since 2000 and Biya since a coup in 1982. Now, joining me this evening for this discussion is Alex Okonkwo, a security expert. He joins from Lagos. I also have Achike Chude, who's with us in our studios in Lagos. One welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on the conversation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'd like to begin with you, Alex. Alex, what underlying political, economic, or social factors might have contributed to the recent military coup in Gabon, and how significant is this event for the region and Africa as a whole?
Okay, the Gabon story is a very particular story. Gabon is a rather peaceful country, stable. When I say peaceful, sorry, I must clarify that. I mean that it doesn't have any necessary or evident Islamic, attacks going on, ethnic issues that can come up, and it has neighbors that are a little bit in problems. Rwanda, Burundi, and so on. So what is happening here is more economic, I would say. It's more the people are tired of not getting the benefits of such a rich country, such a diverse and rich country that is rather peaceful, that has been stable for a while. And also there is a bit of people that have been taking for a ride because we're looking at a president. Look, the tenure of presidency in Gabon is 7 years. You must realize that the president stays for 7 years. He has a 2-term tenure, and it was extended not long ago. And so the presidents can now stay for three terms or more. In fact, the father of the one who was removed now, the Omar Bongo, stayed, I don't know whether he did 6 or 8 terms, at 7 years each. So it is more like a social frustration than an insecurity issue. That is one of the main differences between what happened in Niger and some other countries.
The West African
even
coups.
The governments that were, yes, those coups are quite different because there's a bit of insecurity. These are very massive countries in terms of sizes, Niger, Mali, and all that. And everybody there feels that the military will do a better job. So it's more like insecurity and a bit of poverty. Here we're talking clearly of what I would call political vandalism, because we have people, in fact, a clan that has been ruling the country for decades. And the Gabonese people don't see the effect. Then, and I know our political analysts will add this to it, then there's the factor of France Afrique. You cannot rule that out because these people, these despots, so to say, have been kept in government with a sort of system that France Afrique, that's the French governments, have been running for decades as well. Mm-hmm. So, oppressing the people, oppressing the opposition, oppressing the press, and so many other things. While the fortunes of these people, these families, are actually more in Europe, in France, in Switzerland, and so on. So it is more political and social than insecurity, so to say. It's a different kind of problem.
Thank you very much, Alex Okonkwo. Now, Chike, I'd like to borrow a word that Alex looked at, and it's the right word to use for this question and this example I'm about to make. Political vandalism. Looking back to President Biya's rise to power through a coup d'etat in 1982, that's 41 years ago. How has his leadership evolved, and how have allegations of tyranny and human rights abuses affected its governance? And how has he also been able to keep himself in power this long? And are we right to still refer to Cameroon as a democracy?
I think your last question is interesting, and I think that it's a question we have to ask of other so-called democracies in the African continent. You're talking about before the Ugandan strongman was removed. He was running elections. Elections have been run in Rwanda. The Rwandan president is supposed to leave office, or his tenure is supposed to expire in 2035. You have the son of Ignasemba, Nyasemba, who was in power for about 35 years. His son has been in power for 18 years. You have so many other, there are some that have stayed in power for 22 years and all that. And under, you ask yourself how that can be possible under a democratic setting. Because it's only when you have maybe dynasties that you can begin to talk about a son succeeding the father and all that. So obviously a question needs to be asked, and plenty of questions have already been asked about the kind of democracy that we have in Africa, where even when the people have the opportunity to effect a change of government peacefully, democratically, that ability is taken away from the people through the kinds of elections that we have had across the continent, from Uganda to Nigeria to Cameroon to Zimbabwe and the rest. It is the same story of subversion of the will of the people. And so when you talk about military intervention in a democratic setting, you're talking about the subversion of the people, the subversion of constitutionalism, the conversion, and the conversion of the express interest of the people. And so then the same thing happens with elections under democratically elected government. You also talk about the same subversion. No wonder what you are seeing is, first, an illegal action by military juntas across parts of the continent, an illegality. But you also have a revolt by the people against their political leaders, because the welcoming of these military adventurers is an indication, that there is a no love lost relationship between the people and their political leaders. And so you talk about Cameroon, and it is what we have seen over the years. Paul Biya has been in power for 42 years. Obviously, he's not the best thing that has happened to Cameroon, but he has been able to keep himself in power through all manners of intrigues and vicious clampdown and suppression and oppression of the people, and then of course the manipulation of the ballot boxes. No wonder Cameroon has also descended into all manners of crisis, economic, social, and political. And so these are the things that we continue to see across the African continent. And we must make this point again, that the presence of civilian governments in power, in Africa or in any part of the world, is not an indication of democracy, because some of the worst dictators in the continent have been civilian presidents. Mobutu Sese Seko, the man from the Central African Republic, and so many others. It's what we are seeing. So there is really nothing to indicate that, yes, in name we have a democracy, but in practice you cannot exactly call it democratic. What is happening democratic? Because they subvert the will of the people. They have no respect for the rule of law, and democracy is founded on the rule of law essentially. And then freedom of the press is also an essential ingredient of a democratic setting or government. But we have seen even the treatment of the media. And people have also said that when you want to determine the level of freeness of a country, determine the level of freeness of the media. That will give you an idea about what is happening in terms of the democratic culture in such countries.
Thank you, Chike. Now, Alex, the timing of these military changes in Rwanda and Cameroon following the Gabonese coup, when it was immediate, less than 24 hours, these changes were announced. It does raise questions. How do you interpret this timing? And could it signal a coordinated response among African nations? And what do you make of the reactions, the condemnation we've gotten from the African Union and regional bodies so far?
Okay, well, I think the African Union has done, or rather, is doing its part. There's not that much they can do in a sovereign country. There's also the concept of non-intervention, which is not legal. So on the African Union part, there's not much we can say now. Things are evolving quickly. But I will talk of the two countries that you mentioned that are neighbors to Gabon. They are seeing a peaceful country transform into a military rule, a transitional military rule, so to say. That's what is announced. It's announced like a comité de transition in French. So it's a transitional group. But Rwanda is looking at it. I mean, the guest at the studio also mentioned it. These countries are transforming into oligarchies. No matter how you look at it, I mean, Kagame has done a good job in Rwanda, but he's not doing a good job in leaving a legacy. He has been there for too long.
Yeah.
So it is gradually turning from what looked like a democracy initially to what is looking like an autocracy and an oligarchy, where only those that are favorable to him are still surviving. Others have gone on exile. People don't know that. So Rwanda knows that there's a spillover effect that can happen. If a peaceful country like Gabon, in quotes, a peaceful country like Gabon, can fall into military hands, I mean, what stops Rwanda from falling? And don't forget, Rwanda has two major tribes, two major ethnic tribes that can, because a lot of these things have to do with, there's a bit of tribalism there as well. I would even say that is what is saving Nigeria. The fact that we are multi-tribalist, where a lot of us, a lot of tribes, it might not be easy to have a cohesion if a group wanted to attack or something. But these countries have very major tribes and very, very minute other tribes. So it's very easy to find 7 military juntas in one group that can do something. Gabon has already suffered a coup in 2019. People should remember. It was a coup that didn't succeed, I would say. But this same president has already suffered a little bit. So it's not something that is so new in that region, which is a boiling region. Remember, Congo already has problems, and Burundi already has problems. So these are regions that can explode any time. That is why what they are doing, these two presidents, was to remove generals who were already senior, who can mobilize their troops according to ethnic lines, and that is very important in these two regions, because anything can happen. So Kagame is only taking care of his backyard, so to say. He's not doing anything exceptional in the African terms of democracy, which we don't really have.
Thank you very much, Alex. Now, Chike, finally, before we wrap up conversation, considering the fragile political situations in these countries, what measures can be taken both domestically and internationally to prevent this coup contagion from spreading and to promote peaceful transitions of power? What needs to be done?
You need to get an effective antidote, or is it serum, for a snake bite. You know, and so there is an antidote for bad governance. I mean, an antidote for military coups, and it's good governance. It's as simple as that, good governance. It's about, protecting and ensuring and promoting the interests of the people. That is the basis for which politicians come to power. That is the basis for which political parties exist. You know, to do the work of the people, to provide for the welfare of the people and the security of the people. You know, and then once you do that, because you look at the military everywhere are always looking at the political barometer and, you know, public opinion. That gives them an idea. If some of them are overambitious, it gives them an idea about, the possibility of striking and when to strike. And I think it was the former president, military strongman dictator, Ibrahim Babangida, that said years after he had left power, you know, that the military is always conscious, always watching out for public opinion. And, you know, and so public opinion determines what happens, because they know that their intervention at any particular point in time will not be resisted by the people and will be accepted. And so it would appear that the politicians themselves are not looking at the political barometer. They are so insensitive and far removed from their people. They are absolutely selfish and unpatriotic, because if they were not, then you know they will do.
Yeah, but people say
yes.
When you have that sort of situation, you protest through your votes.
Yeah, good. Now, very, very key, because that is the basis, you know, of even governance of a democracy itself. Ultimately, that everybody has to go through the litmus test. Everybody, you know, has to be judged, you know, by the people, and the ultimate judgment of the people is what happens during an election. I mean, because if you say that democracy, at least the basic definition of democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people, that means simply that the people must have a very big say.
Yeah, but in a situation where the will of the people is not respected.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you have a situation where even that basic rule, you know, of a democracy, one of the most important, the change of political leadership as determined by the people based on the performance of the political actors, when that basic, initiative is taken away from the people and the whole process is manipulated, and in the process, people are intimidated and violence is unleashed on them across the African continent.
Okay.
So that last hope, that last vestige of hope that the people are holding on to, that perhaps they can make a change with their thumb, is taken away from them. What is left ultimately is frustration and anger about the people, and that's why they are welcoming the military.
On that very sad note, we'll have to bring this conversation to a close. I'd like to say thank you to our distinguished guest, Alex Okonkwo, security expert, who joined us from Lagos, Nigeria, and Achike Chude, who's in the studio with me in Lagos. Thank you, gentlemen, for your insights and your contribution to the program.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.